welcome back to another episode of the Paper Shufflers. I'm your host, Julie, and if you're anything like me, you are not only shuffling papers, but you are also shuffling clothes, which is just another type of fiber product. Well, we have a solution for you today. Meet our guest, Nancy Dilts. She is with Nancy Dilts Wardrobe Consulting. And we're excited today. She'll be sharing her journey on how a simple clearing out of her own closet clutter led her to an act of self-love and later to her own business. She now owns Nancy Dilts Wardrobe Consulting LLC, where she brings together her passions, personal style, positive body image, and the environment. And she helps her clients feel great about how they look, and you use an economically and environmentally sustainable approach, which I feel really good about promoting for you, Nancy. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. I'm really excited to be here. It's going to be a great conversation.
I think it is too. So, this topic, I know for myself, there have been times where I'm like, gosh, I really wish I could have someone help me clear out my closet. And it seemed, I don't know, it seemed more like a want than a need, a little bit more frivolous. But I will tell you, I think as I'm starting to clear out my clutter, there is such a deeper purpose to this. And it really can be life-changing and make us so much more functional and purposeful. What was the moment that you started this journey? Like, what was the impetus and what were you initially trying to accomplish?
Yes, and I totally agree with you. It can absolutely be transformative to start to address these things in your life. So it all actually, for me, stems to negative body image, and it actually started when I was a child, even before puberty. I received a lot of negative messages growing up. Some were from family, some were from the culture that we live in. And especially when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, women were absolutely supposed to look a certain way. And, even as children, we were receiving those messages. And so I grew up and well into adulthood, really feeling just like I wanted to disappear. I hated having to get dressed for anything that, involved having to look more polished or a little bit more dressed up because it totally stressed me out. I absolutely had one of those closets where it was completely full, but I never felt like I had good things to wear. So I would just try to hide in my clothes, and I wore things that were way oversized for me. And I used clothes as a way to not be noticed.
Interesting. So I just had a quick question about that because I too, growing up, received a lot of negative body images. And I think some of it had to deal with how I grew. So I was very tall for my age. And I think because I was so much taller, I wasn't actually wider. When you see pictures of me now, my kids are like, Mom, you were anorexic. But I was so much taller that there's just this bigness that people associate with you. And I was clearing out my parents' house recently, and I found some of my old things that I had saved. And I found a cigarette ad from the 80s. And guess what was on the ad? The woman's weight and height.
Oh my gosh.
In little tiny
print.
Oh
my gosh.
It said, model
Unbelievable.
5'8", 117 pounds. I mean, and I was like, wow. And
that's crazy.
That's how much I weighed at that time. And it's interesting. I have my own daughters now, and I have told that when they were in that age, like that 4th through 6th grade, and they were starting to feel heavier because they were growing taller, I said, do not worry one iota. I said, your body is going to grow differently than the friends around you. You are going to get a little wider. And then I guarantee you, based on the way your parents, you're going to get taller. And they thankfully listened to me. And now that's happened. So I'm hoping to change that. But tell me, you said you were tall too.
Yes, and that's exactly. I'm 5'8" as well, and I always was bigger than all the girls in my class and all the things, and so I definitely really hated my body.
Yeah.
And then I had a daughter. It's just like what you're talking about. I did not want to pass those messages and those beliefs on to her, and I realized that the only way that I could not do that. I obviously was talking with her about it all the time, but they also watch what you do. They watch how you look at yourself and how you behave around clothes and all of those
Absolutely.
things. And I realized that I needed to do the work for myself to not pass that on, to model to her in my behaviors as well as my words that I wanted her to love her body and respect her body and feel really happy with how she looks and just have that confidence that I did not have. And at the same time, this was when my daughter was a baby. There was a show on a million years ago called What Not to Wear. All of
Yes.
the Gen X people will absolutely know what that is. And I was watching that, and there was something about Stacey London, especially one of the hosts, how she truly cared about how the participants felt about themselves. And so that stuck with me. And so I started paying attention to how they were helping the clients or the participants on the show to dress.
Mhm.
And so I started following their rules of the
Yeah.
show. And slowly over time, as I changed what I was wearing without changing my body at all,
Mhm.
I started to appreciate my body more. I started to feel more attractive, all of those things without changing me. All I did was change the clothes that I wore. And it was so transformative for me, clearing out the stuff in my closet that really was not serving me, that wasn't feeling good, and bringing in pieces that really worked well for my body. And created good balance of lines. That's something I talk about a lot with my clients, and helped me to feel good and confident. And that was the impetus for my business. I wanted to share that impact of clothing with other people. And I learned later, this was years later, I started my business, and I came upon this term called enclothed cognition. Most people know what it is once it's explained to them because they've either experienced it or want to experience it. And what enclothed cognition is, it's a psychological term that was coined by a psychologist in 2012. His name is Adam Galinsky. He was at Stanford University at the time. And they did psychological studies on their study groups, and they measured they like followed their brainwave activity, and they told them, they gave the same types of clothing to the different people participating in the study. But some people received one message about the clothing, and other people received a different message about the clothing. And they studied their brain chemistry, and they saw that what people wear actually impacts your brain chemistry, and it impacts your overall sense of well-being. And
Wow.
so what you wear can actually shift your mindset. And I always want to qualify that by, it's not going to cure depression. You change your
Right.
clothes and you're cured. But it absolutely can contribute to your recovery from depression. Because when you are intentional about what you wear, that actually shifts your confidence levels.
Hmm.
It can empower you, or it can do the opposite and make you feel worse about yourself, which was what was happening when I was wearing, my dad was 6'5". I would wear his extra large, tall shirts.
Yeah.
And I felt, I was drowning in them and I felt terrible, but I was trying to hide. But when I
Yes.
shifted to clothes that fit me well, it made all the difference in the world. So when I think about, you're helping people with the clutter of paper and, the organizational things of their lives. And I'm helping with the clutter of people's closets specifically. But both of those things are not only a physical burden, but they're also a psychological burden for you. And so that's what I'm helping people do, is to grapple with that psychological burden of what clothes feel like to them, and let them be free of that clutter, both in their minds and physically in their closets and on their bodies,
Yeah.
to embrace what works really well for them. And it's transformative. It truly is.
I just know when I was working in corporate America and trying to get two kids out the door who were, not easy at 6 a.m., and then trying to come up with an outfit that was looking appropriate. Uh, the it would be interesting to check my blood pressure during
Yeah,
those moments. I got plantar fasciitis the one time when I switched jobs, and it completely hampered my exercise ability because I was wearing shoes that were appropriate for the job, but weren't supportive. And it just literally led me to a ton of inactivity and weight gain, and it really impacted me. And had I really taken the time to think through my lifestyle while I was choosing my wardrobe, I remember that stressed out feeling. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that that impacted that they found that there was a connection to brain chemistry. And I can see how this
yes,
could. Now, tell us a little bit about, um, you said you followed the rules of what not to
yes,
wear. Can I just tell you, I did watch the American version. There was initially a UK version with Trini and
yes.
Susanna. I was introduced to Trini and Susanna on the Oprah show back in the day. And I remember they did an episode that literally all they did to these women was they gave them a little bit of a haircut, some makeup. But other than that, none of these women went on a diet. They didn't go on any exercise
Right.
routine. They just simply put them in different clothes that did the balance, like you were talking about. These women look like they've lost 50 pounds. And they're just the confidence that when they walked out, it was amazing. So tell us of the rules that you were learning and how you kind of started. How did you start this?
So what I do with my clients is we actually have a complimentary initial consult where we start talking about these things, about what they want their style to be, what resonates with them, who they are. I find out what they do in their lives for work, and both your work and personal life, so that I understand the types of clothing that they need for their lifestyle. And it's actually a partnership. I do not push trends at my clients. I'm really about finding a personal style that's really authentic for the person, so that they feel fantastic and feel fully like themselves. So they are showing up as their best selves. And I do pay attention to what's in style, because feeling contemporary is a big part of that. But I
Yes.
always say, if something's trendy but you don't like it, you don't have to wear that. It's really, what's most interesting is when you find your own personal style. That's not
Yes.
just fashion, but it is something that truly reflects who you are. That's the magic that happens when you find clothes that fit well and you feel like they reflect you, your personality, your sassiness, your creativity, your leadership, all of those different things. And all of those can be all of the above. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right.
But when you find that, and that's what I'm helping clients do, is to show them what good fit and balance of lines looks like with the style that they want.
So you take a very holistic approach. I mean, you really
Yes,
ask a lot
absolutely.
about their own personal lives and what image they're trying to portray. And it's interesting about personal style. So I would say I didn't understand and still don't fully the balance lines, right? And this is
Yeah.
where I find, my kids are like, why do I need to learn math? I hate math. They're much more creative types. And I said, what's fascinating, the more you get into the artistic world, you realize that math plays a role in
It's a
all
huge part of
arts.
it. Yes.
And there is when you think of, for those of you that maybe read the Da Vinci Code, they talked about the golden rectangle, and
Yes.
they talk about that golden ratio. There is a perfect rectangle that goes back to Da Vinci,
Yeah.
talking about what is a good balance, and it's used in art. It was used in Greek sculpture, and
Hmm.
it was used by Da Vinci to think of the perfect human form. And that is
Yes.
also used, I think, am I right, with these balance lines of how clothes
Absolutely.
are supposed to fit you, correct?
There is some, yes, the golden ratio is used when you're thinking about proportion for an outfit, and it's divided into thirds. And so you're looking, what looks really balanced is when one piece of your outfit, so it can be your top or your bottom, is one third of the combination, and then the other is two thirds. So that is called the golden ratio. But you don't necessarily always have to have that. You can make a choice to not always have that. But often when something feels like it's off, it's because the proportions are off.
Right.
And some of that also is driven by your body.
Yeah.
Every body is unique. And so it is understanding what looks really balanced on your body. And that looks different for a tall, willowy person if a person is more petite, that's going to look really different. And so it's really finding the balance of lines. And oftentimes people who are in the sort of in the middle of being tall or petite, I'm 5'8" and I'm considered tall, but I'm on the very short
Low
end
end
of
of
being
tall,
tall.
right?
Yeah. And then I actually, usually when someone's petite, they say you're 5'4" or shorter. But I actually look at people who are 5'6" or shorter and assess whether or not petite clothing would work better for them. And often it does. And that is because you're looking at your torso to leg ratio. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes a really big difference of how clothes are going to look on you.
Well,
Always going
and
to
like
be
you
the
said,
right
there's
thing.
times where you might want to purposely change that on purpose for different effects.
Hmm.
But then there's your body type. You might tend to be
Exactly.
more of a pear. You might be tend to be an apple. You might be, hourglass. These all also play a role in how that ratio looks on you. And then you add on top of that, like you said, your personal style, which I think was always a mystery to me. I've been paying more attention to what are those kind of archetypes, those style archetypes,
Yes.
and trying to figure out which one I am. How do you get at the style piece? Like, what are some questions, maybe two questions as they look at their own closet to just kind of start this on their own? And then obviously, if they want more expertise help, they can contact
Hmm.
someone like you.
So, in terms of fit, I think it's really important to have clothing that skims the lines of your body. So, a lot of people, if a woman is curvy, sometimes a woman feels like that she needs to cover her curves because that will, I guess, draw less attention to them, or she feels like if she feels too curvy, then she wants to hide that. And
Mm-hmm.
it skimming, you're finding clothes that fit you well. Meaning not too tight, so fabric is not spanning, pulling on your body, nor gapping or just
Mm-hmm.
being really baggy or having a lot of extra fabric. And so finding things that skim the lines of your body, that is what looks amazing. And it can take getting used to if you're not comfortable. If you haven't been doing that, it can take a little bit of getting used to because all of a sudden, if you're wearing really big clothes and then you're wearing something more fitted, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel exposed. It feels too
Exposed.
tight, all of those things. And it's not, and that is, it's actually kind of a mindset practice.
Right.
And that's what I'm supporting people in doing is finding, showing them what works well and actually showing the difference. And so some of it has to do with hemlines, some of it has to do with how long your sleeves are and where it hits you at your hips and waist. And so really figuring out what is it that, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, something looks really off, look at those places like at your hips and waist and see, say, is it too long for me or is it too
Yeah.
short? Those kinds of things can really make a difference. And then also, paying attention to color because
Yes.
when we were prepping, we talked a little bit about color because color is so important because color can bring so much energy to your complexion. And it also can drain energy from your complexion. And so if it's not the right color for you. So thinking about the ones that actually you love and help you, but also looking and like, does it bring energy to my face or does
Yes.
it just make me look really washed out? Those kinds of
Right.
things can make a big difference.
And I think the energy to the face, people when you wear color, you know you're wearing the right color for in two ways. One, you will get compliments. And the
Yes.
compliments are interesting. Excuse me, the compliments are not, I love that color. The compliments are, you look great. You
Yes.
look amazing. They actually don't comment on the color, they comment on you. That's how you know you're right, wearing the right color. And then I think that's when you're judging color, you have to say, do I notice me, my face, or do I
Right.
notice the color?
Exactly.
Do I
Right.
notice the color? Does it seem to harmonize but not drain? Because there are colors that are so
Or
close to our
clash.
skin. Like for me, there's a tan that literally every time I put it on, it melds perfectly. Like literally,
Yeah.
I look like a big cardboard box. So
Yeah.
that's not what we're looking for when we say harmonize. We mean it makes your face glow, and it
Right.
brings
Exactly.
you actually notice your eye color and you notice your complexion and your hair, and it all seems to work together, and it actually brings vibrancy. So that's what you're looking for. And I think where I started, and it sounds like this would could be a good place, is just going through and taking out the clothes that either are too gappy or too tight. And I did do that, and I
Absolutely.
that felt great, and it actually cleared out a lot. And
Hmm.
I did notice for myself being taller, and even though I wouldn't call myself thin right now, my body type tends towards more thin. I do find I look better when things accentuate my waist. A lot of women, when they get some weight in the middle, try and buy these bulky things that hide them. So it felt
Yes.
that's one thing, listeners, you can start there. If you don't want to give it up, put it in a box and put it in some storeroom somewhere,
Yes.
so that you can think about it, right? Just get it out of the space and see if that feels good for a while. That's what I always say
Yes.
start. Now, before we have a couple minutes here, let's talk about the sustainability, because you have noticed, or you have some places here locally which we want to promote, where people can bring these extra clothes if they are ready to donate. Tell us a little bit about
Absolutely.
that.
Yes. So I actually, I had a first career in the environmental field. So sustainability is a big part of my business in that I help people make the clothes they own as functional as possible. And that does include purging. And we'll talk about where you can take those clothes. But then when I shop with my clients, we shop consignment. So it's a form of resale, but it's very high quality and it keeps clothing, good quality clothing in the use stream, which is super important to me to reuse clothing that is really good because textile waste is an enormous environmental issue. And but the piece about when you are clearing out the clutter of your closet, so there are lots of places that you can donate. And if your clothes, so a lot of times people will hold on to clothes that they bought, maybe it's an impulse buy, and they really just don't work for them, and the tags are still on them. If they are not too old, go ahead and just get rid of those pieces because they're not serving you if they're in their closet, in your closet, and you're not wearing them.
Yeah.
And it's like just a constant reminder of that purchase was a mistake. And it's
Yes.
okay that it was a mistake. It's okay to make mistakes.
Right.
But letting that go and actually become someone else's loved item is the best thing that you can do for yourself and for the environment. And so you can consign your pieces if they're in good condition and are not too old or dated. And that will actually garner you some income from that, get a little bit of money back from that purchase, and it will go and be loved by someone else. If
Yes.
things need to be donated, I do suggest that you find places that are hyper local thrift shops because those are much more likely to actually use the clothes that you are donating. There is sort of the rule of thumb that if you wouldn't feel comfortable giving an item to a friend, then you really shouldn't donate it. Unfortunately, we don't have recycling at this time, but you should throw that away because
Yes.
it's really, we have the solid waste infrastructure to deal with that. Um,
Yes.
while I would love to have less textile waste in our landfills, but places like St. Joseph's coat in
Yes.
St. Paul. There is one in Richfield called the Assistance League. There is Family Pathways. That has multiple locations around the Twin Cities. There are quite a lot of local thrift organizations that are supporting people, unhoused people, and people in need. And
Yeah.
that is their target audience. And so it's really helpful to donate to places like that rather than Goodwill.
Yes.
Sometimes Goodwill is the best place to donate, but they are inundated with donations, and only about 20% of their donations end up on the sales floor. So a lot of that, some of it's recycled, some of it is sent overseas, which is where it becomes their solid waste issue. And they
Right.
don't, and developing nations don't have the infrastructure that we do. And so that's just really kind of pushing the problem on other people. And that is not really a great thing to do.
Exactly. I think people pick Goodwill because it's easy. These other places you
Exactly.
have to make an appointment. So it takes a little more effort. What is a criteria of yes, this should go to Goodwill and not these other places?
So if it is not gross, not so, the mildew and the mold, you
Mhm.
must throw those things away.
Yes.
But so if it has a very musty odor, you should throw it away.
Okay.
But if it is it's really damaged, I will say that Goodwill does do some recycling. And so
Okay.
if it's really damaged, other than mustiness, I would donate it to Goodwill and even put on the bag for recycling
Okay.
so that then it just saves the Goodwill people time and they just direct it into that route.
Oh,
But
nice.
um, but if you have workwear that's really nice, there are two places that you're not wearing it anymore. This is really great for when people are retiring or they're making a shift in their work or they change size, all of those things, but these clothes are still in good condition. There are two places for women's wear. Dress for Success is a great place to donate your workwear. And
Yes.
then, and they're located in St. Paul, but you do need to reach out and look at the website and find out because they have donation drop-off times where you can, put that on your calendar and then take it.
And specifically for, I think women who are disadvantaged
Entering the
and looking for work.
workforce.
Yeah, entering the
Yeah.
workforce. So it's such an important organization.
It's
Yes.
wonderful. And they do a lot of skills development too for women entering the workforce. So it's really a great organization to support. And then there is also, it is called Ready for Success. It is housed by Project for Pride in Living or PPL. You can look that up. And it's based in Minneapolis and it has a work readiness clothing program as well, which is called Ready for Success. And that's for both women and men. So if you
Okay.
have suits or men's business wear to donate, that is a great place to do it.
Oh, that's wonderful. So these are really good organizations. So again, St.
Yes.
Joseph's Coats, the Assistance League, Family Pathways, Dress for Success, and Ready for Success. Those are five
Yes.
places that we can start to donate our goods besides Goodwill. And I really
Yes.
loved the tip on setting up writing recycling on the bag. I did not know you could do that, so that's a really good tip. So thank you, Nancy.
Yes.
And I do want to emphasize we can always use resources like Nancy's to further that development. Nancy, if people want to reach you, how do they get a hold of you?
So my website is nancydilts.com. So, and NANCYDILTS.com. And I'm also on the socials. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and it's Nancy Dilts Wardrobe Consulting. So,
Okay,
yes.
great. Well, I hope you take. I have started using Nancy's services, and I will tell you her intake is quite extensive, and it made me think a little deeper on what my goals are with some of this. So, and it does get
Yes,
to some personal, just life goals. So I'm really excited to
absolutely.
you, and I really appreciate it. And I do encourage people. It may seem like a frivolous task, but it really has power When you feel better, you do better. I always feel. So this is great. Well, Nancy, thank you again. Really appreciate your time. And we hope to have you again on the show, maybe with some different topics that relate to this. So thank you.
Yes.
A
Thanks so
deeper
much,
dive,
Julie.
perhaps. Okay, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.